Hey, everybody, welcome into Monday Domains. It is a holiday here in the U.S., so not everybody may be working today, so we might have more holiday membership here today at Monday Domains. I think I remember back when I was working full time and still doing some day trading and things like that, it was the holidays that allowed you to get serious about your hobby. In that case, it was trading stocks. I remember the day after Thanksgiving was always a big day for stock trading sometimes because you had so many people that normally work, trading. But anyway, it's President's Day today. So our banks are closed, our stock market's closed, but the domain market is open 24/7. 365. It never closes. The only thing that closes in the domain market are the customer support hours of the companies that try to make money from the 24/7 domain market. But that's just a little pet peeve I have. Anybody? I'll let a couple more people join in. We've got a good show today on Monday Domains. For those of you listening live in Clubhouse, being part of our audience, I usually try to have a couple things for the live audience. And then others of you are listening to this on a replay on Clubhouse. And then others of you are listening to it as a podcast where you don't even need the Clubhouse app and you can listen to it. You may be coming from Domain Club. That's who sponsors the talk, Monday Domains. And then we're also affiliated with Startup Club, and that's the largest club on Clubhouse. And we share content on startup.club website and the domain.club website. I think it's funny how NamesCon came out and announced that we're going to have a live NamesCon this year. And it's going to be in August. And it's funny because normally in the domain space, for those of you listening, I try to speak to three different audiences: people who own domains. You may have domain names. You may be in charge of managing domain names for your company. I speak to people that are investing in domain names, whether you're investing in low price names, names you can sell directly, names you list on aftermarkets. You might be investing in high price names, or you might be a collector, someone who's familiar with the tech industry and at different times likes to pick up different projects. And then the third audience is people in the domain name industry. So right now you've got a chance with NamesCon coming live in August, which is about 6 months away, to put a live domain show on your schedule. And I think there's a chance that I'll have a virtual show between now and then. But I think a live show needs a much bigger runway to announce their dates, because you have to figure out travel plans and conflicts. And I think this is going to be a holiday weekend here in the U.S., the days following NamesCon. And so, I think they've kind of sent out a save the date or put it on your schedule. And because you have to travel, plane tickets for people traveling internationally, visas, and things like that, I think they need a much more runway. I may do my domain show again in June, and we may announce it in March, because I think virtually we can coordinate our speakers and provide our value, within a short period of time. But anyway, I bought my ticket for NamesCon. For me, a chance to see everybody in person. I have various ventures in the domain space. I manage my own portfolio of 9 or 10,000 domain names. So for me, it's a chance to learn. Although in the past, NamesCon hasn't been great at that part of it, but it's certainly a chance to have meetings, see people in a centralized space, and get an idea of what's going on, and have a good time with people I've done business with over the years. So they have an early bird special for NamesCon. I think it's $399. And there was a time when NamesCon predecessor, whether it was Domain Fest or when NamesCon started, that was the full price is $399 and the pre-sale price was $199. And I think that those days are gone. Once the big corporation came in and bought the show out, they're used to doing the big Cloud Fest show in Germany, and they seem to feel like they can take the price of the show up to $1,000. And if you ever say that's too expensive for beginning and domain investors, they'll say, well, that's how we keep the riffraff out, and we make it really expensive, because I think there's a certain level of access that you can get by going to NamesCon, where you may be in a room or at a table or in an elevator or in a lobby or at a social event with someone who you may not be able to connect with on LinkedIn or reach out to. But if you get a chance to build a relationship and form a relationship, or ask them a specific business topic, you can do that when you're live and in person. And I think that is, that's a reason that NamesCon has become more of a business development show for people in and around the domain name space, where their company is probably paying their ticket, they can afford the higher price. I'm not sure, and this is my own personal opinion, I'm not sure it's always met the needs of a domain investor who is looking for kind of to become a better domain investor. Now, you're going to get a huge amount of content, but I'm not sure the show is always geared to that. And because the price is higher now at $1,000, um, I think that's a consideration. But you can mitigate that. They have a limited number of early bird tickets. They may extend the early bird. I don't know. But if you know you're going to go, this is a good time to buy the ticket. As I shared last week, I think. Not sure if I had already bought my ticket last week. It used to be the best time to buy your ticket for NamesCon was at the end of the prior NamesCon, and you could get the biggest discount. And I think the second thing you used to be able to do is get a ticket on the day after Christmas or the day after Thanksgiving Black Friday sale. And that was kind of a second chance to get a discounted ticket when the show was in January. The other thing I wanted to mention about NamesCon is that normally the show is in January, and you have a lot of companies race to get their new product offerings out, to make announcements in and around NamesCon. They're going to be going to NamesCon. People are going to be asking them questions and maybe sharing concerns about their product. And I think that that they may be feeling like, well, we've solved that because here's our new and improved product. And we really didn't have that this year. So we've kind of just moved into 2022, and without this kind of reset that we normally have when we all attend a NamesCon. So I'll try to help here with Monday Domains to kind of bring what I think would be the main topics that are affecting everybody. But anyway, busy week. We've got a couple auctions this week. We have the Sadhu auction, which is ending on the 24th. So that's Thursday. And Sadhu has monthly auctions. They actually bought a brand called Great Domains. And so they still, I think, call these Great Domains auctions. And these are auctions where people submit names, they're curated. They use their same auction platform that they use for auctions. You can pay to start an auction anytime you want at Sadhu. And we're going to talk about Sadhu a lot today. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. I don't know if I am. It's probably one of the great discussions in the domain industry where you have to say, is it Sea-Doo, like the personal watercraft? Is it Sadhu? Is there a German pronunciation? But I'm going to go with Sadhu. And so you can start an auction at any time for a name. I think you pay $69 or some fee, and you can be on their auction platform. The second thing their auction platform does is if someone makes an offer on a name, they've got millions of names registered and or millions of names with their landing pages. And if someone offers, say, $1,000 for a name, you can either accept the offer as a seller, or you can counter offer, or you can send the name to an auction. And what that means is that they'll start an auction with the first offer being a binding offer at $1,000. And I think in auction parlance, they might call this a stalking horse offer. Um, and then you can obviously, if no one else in the world wants to buy it that knows about these auctions wants to buy it, you'll sell it for the 1,000. But there's other people, if you feel like, hey, this could be just way too cheap for the name, I'm at least going to put it out there and see if a sophisticated investor or a hobbyist that watches Say-Do auctions wants to pay more. But what they do once a month is they either have a themed auction, or in this case, a great domains auction, which really doesn't have a theme. And they'll have names of all kinds. They'll have $10,000 to $100,000 names. They'll have no reserve names. They'll have CCTLDs. They'll have IDNs. They'll have one words and two words. So the Say-Do auction ends Thursday, and I think it's become more of a wholesale auction over the years. You know, Say-Do at one time had the reach to extend into the real digital world. And what I mean by that is you might have expected them to do some advertising like in Entrepreneur Magazine or Inc. Magazine or things like that. And when they started, they really were trying to capture all the benefits of introducing this idea of owning a good domain name to the most amount of people. But over time, most of these exchanges have cut back all their advertising to almost zero. And they've just relied on the fact that they have, millions of names. So someone will buy something every day and they're able to, keep running and making a lot of money and paying their employees. But, I've always been disappointed because they stopped aspiring to reach their potential to make buying domains easy and understood and something that businesses would learn to do. Now, I list all my domains at Say-Do, and I'm going to talk about how you can maximize your listings on Say-Do today. I don't work for Say-Do. I don't have an interest in Say-Do, but I think you need to know about them. They were one of the original companies in the space. They've been responsible for my second biggest sale of all time at $1 million. And they've been responsible for my biggest sale last year at $30,000. So I know Afternic seems like it's the default leader, and people say, hey, what should I do with a domain name? You should list it at Afternic. And most people have a GoDaddy account, and GoDaddy, because they own Afternic, they say you need to go with Afternic. And you hear Afternic, 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 Afternic. And, Say-Do's still out there. And so I'll talk about a little bit later how to maximize your Say-Do listing. But anyway, before I talk about the other auction that's ending, I think it's this week. Scott, you may have to come up and remind me when your ending date is. But the Great Domains auction has become more of a wholesale auction. And I think that it's not watched by a lot of people. I don't think you're going to get a meta name for, $100 if it's metamoney.com. It's not like no one's watching it. And you're going to get a screaming bargain on the most popular name. But I think if you're in the world of names that you particularly like, you particularly have a market for, you've been successful with their value before, you're probably competing against some pretty greedy, and I mean that in a good way, some other bidders with really high expectations. Because you have to remember, a domain investor going to an auction, they're comparing what they could buy in that auction with every other possible name they could buy today in every other auction and every other marketplace. So the reason that we have such an attractive opportunity in domain investing to buy at wholesale and to sell at retail is that when you're buying at wholesale, even though the seller of that name would love it if they were the only name for sale that day or on a platform, and that you would see all the goodness in their name and you wouldn't have anything else to look at, and you would just spend the most money you could on their name. Picture going into a store and you're in the mood to shop. You're at a shopping mall. You're on vacation. You've gone to a store that you like, and there's only one product there. Well, you're like, well, I don't know. I wanted to buy something today, so you may buy it. You may overpay for it. So sellers would love that to happen, but in truth, you got to think domain buyers at an auction or they're at a big auction looking at all the possible names to buy, and they're comparing it with all the possible names they can buy in other auctions, and they're comparing it with the expectation or the hope of how much they'd like to pay. Man, even though that name's $600, I'd like to get it for $300. So sometimes when it goes to $700 or $800, you'll see them fall away. So I've been able to buy names at the Great Domains auction for attractive prices when I felt like I might have some unique edge on the name. And I think I realized that my competition may not be everybody in the domain business. Say they'll tweet about it and they'll do things like that, but they don't always do the best job. I think people have become a little nose blind over the years because, after, literally 15 years of Say-Do Great Domains happening every week, you kind of see the tweet, you see the message, and you might just kind of, well, that one again. I'll get to that. Maybe I'll get to that. And so I think you don't always have a lot of competition. Say-Do would love it if they could say, oh no, we have nothing but retail buyers. We reach out to the buyers in the space, and we get them to come to the auction, and they're all gonna compete with it. But I'm not sure that exists. So section auctions that ends this week is Monty, who was with us last Monday, the Right of the Dot auction. And I think this is another place where you have an auction that, as good as they are at promoting and as good as they are with their mailing list, it's in the middle of the day on Thursday. It's not something that people are used to doing every day. So you may not have every single investor, lining up, doing a thorough analysis of the entire list. And I think in that regard, you're looking to buy in today's market where you don't have a lot of competition. I think the other thing that I mentioned last week about the Right of the Dot auctions is they've done a little bit of your work for you. And as a domain investor, you have some certainty that you're going to get the name because the seller has already signed an agreement with Right of the Dot saying, if this name gets a bid above the reserve price, I agree to sell it. And not only is there an agreement in place, but I mean that's why they did it, And so it is as opposed to even GoDaddy auctions lately. I've heard of times where you can win but not win. I know in Dynadot auctions there might be a 10 to 15% rate where the previous owner renews the name after you think you bought it. If anyone's ever bid at some of other registrars, there's one registrar where I think it's about 1 in 3 names that I win. The original registrant renews it. And so you've got to go through all this effort to bid, all this effort to wonder what you should bid, what's it going to be, could you get it for this? And then it finally closes and you win or don't win. But if you win, then you find out, well, you're not going to get it. And so you almost have to factor that into the ones that you do win to pay you for the time you spent looking at the ones you don't win. So I think with the Right of the Dot auction, you've got a curated list where, just like at GoDaddy auctions, where you see the most active bid names each day. So out of 30,000 auction names, you see the 200 or 300 with the most bids. I think with Right of the Dot, you've got the same thing where they reviewed, whether it's above 10,000 or below, they reviewed an awful lot of submissions. When they announced they're going to have an auction, and they've gone through and they've knocked out the ones with deficiencies. They've knocked out the ones with flaws. They've knocked out the ones that don't have star power. they've got a limited amount of resources and effort and time, and they want to make sure that they put the right names up there. So if you're thinking about real world domaining, which is all I can really speak to, hypothetically, it'd be great to say, oh, in domain investing, like if you're reading an ebook or something, you can find domains for a fraction of their ultimate value, and you're going to be able to get this great name. But, most of the time, it's going to be kind of in the middle. It's going to be a pretty good name for a pretty good value. And you have to say, does it match my investing style? Putting myself in the shoes of a domain investor, is it an area where I think I have an advantage because I know some buyers already, or I've got experience with this name, or I really believe in this trend, or I really believe that this trend may be coming back? You may be, like I talked about last week, thinking that the back to work, the back to travel, the back to social interaction, the shared economy may come back in a way that that it was everything back in 2019, the sharing economy. And then we got COVID, and all of a sudden I don't want to share my tractor with somebody. I don't want to share my storage with somebody. I could get COVID from sharing. So I think the sharing economy in many ways is one of the ones that we may see come back. But also travel and things related to work, restaurants and work areas where maybe they didn't have people for a long time. Um, even something like Washington, D.C., the Congress is still closed, if you can believe it. They have never opened up since the pandemic started. So they're still, not meeting. But there may be other businesses like that. But anyway, back to Ride of the Dot. Sorry, got confused there. So you've got a chance to look at their list. And here's how I've been successful with the Ride of the Dot auction. And hopefully I won't tell you something that'll make you compete against me on the couple names that I want. But hey, it's what we do on Monday Domains. I try to share with you, I think, what are good real world domain investing strategies. And I think what you want to do is you want to look early at the list. And you want to look at the list first, a couple days before the auction, so that you can take your time and you can look at each name, and you may need to wonder, I wonder how many extensions are registered in that name. I wonder what's, if it's a .net or a .io or another extension, what's on the .com. Is there a trademark for that name? Have names like this sold well recently? And I think you not only want to pick out what you think are the 20 or 30 names you're most interested in, but you want to have done your research. Because if you wait till the name may show that there's no bids, I think most of the names are going to start at $500. I think you want to know well before the auction if no one bids on that name, and you may have a situation where the last 10 names, maybe none of them sold. And people could be thinking, oh my gosh, nothing's selling. Well, I don't want to buy anything. If you wait to have your opinion swayed by what's happening during the auction, I think you may do yourself some harm. I think you want to ask yourself, do I like this name? And even if there's no bid, do I want to bid 500? And not, is it just going to be okay, but would I be happy that I won this name for $500? I think now is the time to practice what I've shared with you before, happy domaining. You know, ask yourself, would I be happy if I got this name for this price? And if you would, I think you should kind of have a happy price for each name. So if I bought anteaters.com off the Right of the Dot auction, and I paid, less than $2,000 for it. And that was a spot where some people will call it a no-brainer, but for me, even though I didn't maybe know exactly what I was going to do it, I do now. I'm going to use it for an NFT project, but at the time I was like, no, I'd be happy to do it. I know what I think about the name. And I think if you wait till the day of the auction, your opinion might be skewed about, you just lost an auction at GoDaddy. So I think getting an early read on the list, downloading it, ranking the names, noting the ones you really want, doing your research, even if the name doesn't have a bid right now and it's going to start at 500, it's going to go up to 3,000. At 3,000 or 5,000 or 10,000, when it gets serious, you don't want to be chasing down whether it has a trademark. You don't want to be chasing down how many extensions is it registered in. You want to kind of already thought that out, and you just want to be focusing on, is this where I want to commit capital? 1, 2, 5, 10,000, and is this the time that I want to commit capital to this name? So I really think doing the work early is going to make sense. And then secondly, you may see a name that gets $1,000 bid, and then 1,400, and then 1,800, and then 2,200, and 2,800, and 3,000, and 7,000, and starts running up, and you're like, oh, I got to get in on that name. But I would encourage you to go back to your notes and say, did I already do the work? And it could be a fake out name. It could be a name that looks good, but there's a phrase for cars under the hood. When you look at it deeply, it doesn't have the attributes where you want to get into bidding war. But I think what I hear from most domain investors over time, especially some of the most sophisticated, is they think back to times when they maybe had applied too tough of a attitude toward a name, or they said, I don't want to get crazy on this name. And then thinking back on it, the uniqueness aspects of some names had them always, remembering the ones that got away. And I think it takes a little bit of time to really focus on just how unique and special a domain is. And this is information that's hopefully helpful for anyone out there who's thinking about buying a domain name for their business or for resale. Is sometimes you need to slow down and look at the name straight on, and then look at the name from a side, look at the name from underneath, look at the name from above. Really ask yourself, people would normally buy names based upon rarity and desire. And this is something I talk about a lot in my coaching, and especially in my NFT coaching, is sometimes names have rarity, have value based upon their rarity. Only so many people can own names of this type. There's a lot of people that want them. And so there's a rarity value that says the domain owner has a singularly unique name. They only need to sell it to one person. But I don't think you can underestimate other names that, even though they may not be rare, there may be a lot of names just like them. Do they have a desire aspect? Do they get the heart pumping? Are you proud to want to tell the world that you own that name? And I think you want to think about maybe the rarity and desire of names before going into the auction. Most of the names will probably not even show a bid up until the day of the auction. So you can't use what other people are doing to influence what you're doing. So anyway, those are my suggestions for the Ride of the Dot auction. The same thing applies to the Say-Do auction, and hopefully that's helpful. If anyone has any questions about auctions like this, which I call timely auctions, they're based upon the calendar. They're not the everyday expired auctions. They're not just the daily drop names and the auctions that come from people placing back orders. Let me know. I'll try to share them. You can either ask your question live, and you will be on the recording, or you can ask it through the back channel. And I thanks for the one message. So anyway, I'll just kind of wait a second after we talked about today, what's going on this week. We have two auctions that are timely, and it's fun. It's something we don't always have. We don't always have a right of the auction, right of the dot, right of the auction. Oh, that's funny. We don't always have a right of the dot auction, and we don't always have a say-do auction. So one of the reasons, let's see, actually, you know what? Let's do some news of the week. So we had some interesting news, two big news items last week. Uh, Two big news items last week. I'm switching my. Well, I'm trying to find my list of news items last week. Come on. All right, we talked about Say-Do. All right, so last week, Namecheap, which is one of the largest registrars and one of the fastest growing, and I think one of the most engaged registrars. They're looking to add new business. They're connecting with. I think they're doing a better job of connecting and marketing with the technology industry and the Web3 industry than any other registrar. And they bought Namebase last week. And Namebase is what I used to call an alternate route extension. It's a Web3 domaining system, and it's been out for about 2 years. We talked about it quite a bit on the Domain Social. Jonathan, I think, introduced it to everybody, and he was able to explain how you went through this bidding system. I know a lot of the biggest domain name investors in the space were in early. It was probably the first example of this is before NFTs, this is back in 2020, kind of a new part of the industry with a new vocabulary. You had to use a new currency called HNS, handshake. So Namebase, you can use it kind of interchangeably with handshake. Handshake is the what you might call the domain name system that wants to be the alternate route. And Namebase, I always felt, was the closely integrated commercial company seeking to benefit from it. So when you think of Handshake, you might think of a decentralized, nonprofit run, uh, utopian. We're going to be all the problems that you see with ICANN, we're going to solve. But then in Namebase, you have the company running these auctions, selling the names, letting people monetize them. And so you have a commercial company, and that's what Namecheap bought. So you have a mixing of the old school domain industry with this new Web3 and handshake Namebase, I'll call it Handbase or Nameshake or something. We'll call it Handshake. They're one of three main um decentralized Web3 domaining systems that have started. ENS, or some people would know them better by .eth, was probably the first one on board. You could actually buy names, I think, as far back as 2018, 2017. It's funny, when they first started selling names, you didn't even have to buy them. You just locked up some Ethereum, um, because they didn't want to look like they were a money grab. So you pledged some Ethereum, like one Ethereum, when Ethereum was like $200, and if no one else pledged more than you did, that gave you control of the .eth name. And hypothetically, you could give the name back and then get your Ethereum back. So I think one of the really interesting things is I was going back through my notes thinking, man, I hope I locked up some Ethereum to buy a ENS name, and now it was trading at $3,000 a little while ago. It's in the twos now. But anyway, they were the first ones out, and the whole premise here is there's some things wrong with the ICANN system. Wouldn't it be great if we had a new system? But I really have to say, my overall thought on it, and I'm invested in Namebase, and I have HNS strings, is that it's really easy to say that your new utopian decentralized system is going to solve some of the problems of the existing system. But I don't think any of the three have stood up to any of the scrutiny that would be applied if you actually wanted to run your business on them. And if they actually had to solve the problems of ownership and transferability and who is and legal and trademark and just operability, you know what I mean? Where they're talking about maybe reaching under 1% of the global internet right now. But just wait, that's going to be more. And then the second thing that I think all three of these systems have in common is that they've put the profit motive of allocating the scarce domain names in front of whether the domain names are accepted or not. And because existing ICANN domain names are so valuable and worth millions of dollars, I think what I hate to see is that the public, because they may not know about the original domain name system, they may not understand conceptually the distance in value between a real domain name that works on almost every internet device, unless you have to worry about filters in China and Iran and Russia maybe. But and someone says, well, these new ones are going to be maybe just as good in the future. It's hard to conceptualize that difference of how close are they to what we have now. And I think because of that, people are like, well, they could be just the same. So what you're buying could be worth $1,000,000. Therefore, give me 1,000 today, or 100 today, or 10,000 today. And I hate the fact that there's been so much trading in futures bets on something that doesn't exist. They just plan for it to exist. And believe me, I know a lot of people are making money. I've made money on name-based names. I bought a two-character name for like $300. I sold it for $4,000. Now it's probably worth $40,000. But I just want to encourage you that it's hard to conceptually understand, just like it's hard to conceptually understand the difference between maybe a .com domain name and a new GTLD, because some people may say they're not equal, but they might be someday. And when it comes to spending your money, how do you calculate, what to spend? But I hate the fact that all three of these new systems seem to have come out with a profit motive first, and then we hope to be universal later. Now, I started investing in the alternate roost domain space in 2001. I actually, at that time, I paid $10,000 in 2001 for the rights to .sports, .mail, .golf, .lawyer, .law. And even at that time in 2001, there was a group of people that were trying to say, how can, who says that ICANN should control everything? We're just going to build a simple plug-in that someone can use our root system to operate internet devices. And in the same way, the little browser thing, it'll see all the ICANN TLDs, but it'll see ours also. So even then, I was open to the idea of investing in an alternate, namespace, because I thought it might happen. But I knew it was an extremely risky bet. But I had just been denied entry into the ICANN club when I applied for .kids. So yes, I was looking to still operate a .kids. And if ICANN wasn't going to give it out, then I was looking for alternative places to give it out, because, and I think this is the most important thing, at least for me. And I know that this is a deep discussion of what most people spend about 10 seconds on, which is name cheap bot name base. That means name base is going to be great. Bye, 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 But, for me, I was trying to build a use case for the alternate roots by, in my thing for .kids, I would bring all my customers who wanted a safe space. I would bring all my website providers, and I just needed a root system operator. And so that's the way I looked at it. I didn't look at it that, buying .kids was going to, man, if I could buy it for 2,000, it's going to be worth 100,000. I was actually looking to operate on it. And I just don't see, besides maybe the wallet potential, that happening. But anyway, it's big news. If you're in the name base business, Namecheap buying it, I think, is great. It seems like it's going to give them resources. Namecheap does hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue. They're looking to hire engineers in this thing. If you've got talent, I would suggest this would be a place to go, and you'll be rewarded. You'll be able to contribute to something valuable, and we'll see what comes of it. We'll see if they can make it work. We'll see if they can get it on the different browsers. So name-based buying Namecheap was big news this week. At the next ICANN meeting in the different constituencies, if they want to get up and say name-base is nothing, handshake is nothing, there's going to be an owner there of that space. And I think that's going to change the discussion a little bit, because the conflicts and things like that are going to have to be worked out. Maybe you have someone in Namecheap that is already in the ICANN ecosystem. So I think it's great news. I congratulate both parties. But I don't know if it's enough for me, at least, to say, oh my gosh, all bets are off. Buy anything name-based related, because you do pay a pretty good price for good strings. And they've sold a lot. They've sold hundreds of thousands. And to buy them, you have to use a currency called HNS, and that currency itself can go up or down. So you make a good decision buying your string, but then the value of HNS could go down. Secondarily, if you don't want to buy any strings, you could just buy HNS coin. And if their future comes true, then it should have a lot of utility, and that could mean a lot of demand. It could also mean a lot of supply. If you have a site ranked in the Alexa top, I think it's the top 100,000, you can actually claim your string in HNS, and I think get some HNS for it. So it's pretty complicated. So inside the name-based space, congratulations to both. If you're thinking that this news means it's safe to enter this and it's not risky anymore, I wouldn't go that far. But anyway, great news item. Second news item that happened, and I'll see if Sam has a question on something earlier. Hold on. Hey, Sam. Let's see. Well, second thing that happened was on Wednesday night, I was watching one of the cable news stations, and on the most successful cable news show out there, the most successful show on cable overall, 3 million viewers a week. They mentioned before they went to commercial, they said, those of you out there on the internet, check out liar.com. And this had been reported by Andrew Alleman earlier. If you went to liar.com, it actually forwarded to a Wikipedia page for a political figure. And I'm not going to weigh in on the political nature of the figure and this and that and the other, but here's what I want to talk about. Last week we talked about Coinbase paying $5 million for a Super Bowl commercial, and then having a QR code, and we used the word bridge. That would be a great bridge for people to find out about their product. But when you hit the QR code, it told you where you were going, and then you had to use your browser and you had to use the domain name system to go to that website to actually get the content. And so, I still feel like all these new things need the domain name system. Even the new decentralized domain name systems need the current domain name system to be able to publicize and get customers and take money and do their business to become the future of the internet. Even an NFT needs an exchange operating on the current domain name system to have you buy with your cryptocurrency. That it could be in cold storage, I understand that, but most likely it's on an exchange that's operating in the current domain name system. And you're going to link to your NFT, which probably needs the current domain name system to be able to confirm images and resources and things like that. But I thought was interesting about this liar.com being forwarded was, one, it looks like it was potentially purchased by a famous billionaire, Elon Musk. That's not confirmed, but everyone seems to think so. It was bought off Afternic for $500,000 on a buy it now. So we think by listing our names on the different platforms that, Joe's Catering Company is going to want a good domain for their business, or Pepsi Cola is going to want to buy a good domain name. And in this case, the system worked. Somebody wanted to buy this domain name to use it as a forward that the whole world could see. And they went to Afternic and they paid $500,000 for this premium domain name without blinking. And if you think about how small our industry is, how few participants there are, how few companies there are, that we've still got hundreds of millions of people out there that have never bought a domain name, much less bought a premium domain name. And I just think that it was a pretty good example on a $500,000 name of somebody wanting to connect with the whole world, wanting to take a popular one word liar.com, and that they could then define what liar.com was going to be just by spending money. And $500,000 is a lot of money. But if you think, about scale, there's a lot of companies that could afford a lot more. And I think when you talk about the power of a domain name and the power of an aftermarket to sell that domain name, I think it was a really, a seminal event, because it shows that we've got some of the things that we need to have a big marketplace for $1,000 domains and $500,000 names. And maybe in 10 years, we'll be talking about $5 million domains. But I just thought it was a really interesting example and a public example of someone using a domain name, as much as the QR codes were talked about after the Super Bowl, someone using a real world domain name to accomplish a goal. And you think about a code, you need a phone, you need to know what a QR code is, you need to trust that you can center your phone properly, you need to be comfortable that you used QR codes before. But man, a bridge being a domain name, especially an easy to spell short domain name, now you're talking about something that you can say on TV, you can say in a podcast, you can say on an audio clip, you can say on a tweet, you can say on a TikTok, and you don't, and TikTok, you just say liar.com, or I could say page.com, or I could say Joe Domains, joedomains.com, and that's my bridge for everybody in the world to be able to go and deal with me directly. Or if you're in a country code, everyone in that country to go, and you're dealing with them directly, and you're controlling your relationship with them, the data and everything. So I really thought that was kind of a big deal, that we had someone buying liar.com just for that specific non-commercial purpose, other than they wanted to make a point, and they liked the price, and they spent the money, and they probably achieved their effect a little bit. And then here's the other great thing about a domain name: when you spend $5 million on a Super Bowl ad, it runs, and they're like, "Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. We got your 5 million. If you want to go again, that's another 5 million." And you think about a domain name where you're talking about marketing benefits, but you're talking about owning something where you could mention it in your publicity a bunch of times and you own it. And even in this case, he could have used liar.com, he or she, or we think we know who bought it, and they used it and they achieved their purpose, and now they can sit here and use it again, or sell it to someone else, or use the publicity around when they used it to make it even worth more money. So I just thought that it was really interesting that in the same way that we talk to people about using our $1,000 domain names, $5,000 domain names, $20,000 domain names, we had someone take a one word domain name just to be a link. And you got to remember, again, this is a basic concept, but not everybody gets it. A domain name doesn't have to be a website. Sometimes it can just be a link to content that's already created, content that you own somewhere, content that you manage somewhere, and that the domain name is simply an easier link to send to somebody than if you had to spell out the whole address. Like if you had an NFT, you might want to send them to OpenSea.io/public/NFT/anteaters or something to get to anteaters. But with anteaters.com, I may do nothing more than link to my OpenSea, place. But boy, it's a lot easier to say anteaters.com. Anyway, those are the things I wanted to cover today. We got two auctions this week, Sato and Right of the Dot. We got Namebase buying, we got Namecheap buying Namebase. We got liar.com being used as a forward in a really public way, bought off Afternic with the buy it now. And I think that that's a seminal event we'll all be talking about as we talk to different people about how you can use domain names. So that's kind of my summary today. I see Sam and Todd have joined us. Always appreciate your guys' input. Hey, Sam, how's it going across the pond? All right, Sam may be listening.
Surviving. How are you?
Surviving, I'm doing good. You probably, we've got a holiday here. I doubt you've got the equivalent of a President's Day over there. It would have to be, I guess, Prime Minister's Day or the Queen's Day. My best to the Queen there. I know she got COVID over the weekend, but how's it going?
Yeah, not bad. Just surviving. I literally just got some fish and chips. So
Well, we'll let you have your fish and chips. And Todd, how you doing? Welcome to Monday Domains. You had a lot going on last week in your rooms, but what'd you think about either the name base or name cheap by name base, the liar.com, or will you be checking out the Ride of the Dot auction this week?
Well, I like Queen for a day. I know anyway, I was thinking Queen for a day. Okay, so Paige, yes, I really think the name cheap buying of name base, very important. I was going to come up and say, it's done. We're in name cheap. It's going to be big and it's over with. And of course, you want to sink all your money into these new names. Well, okay, that's silly. We know, of course, not. But I think with what Richard, the CEO of Namecheap, is doing, it is very interesting. I mean, it's very important. And I never expected these new blockchain domains to be, I expected there'd be a small migration to it. First, we get them to be defensive. We know they may not work out, but we're just looking at it like you looked at them 15, 20 years ago, these non-ICANN names. And so we first get them to be defensive in case something sticks and we don't want to not have our brands. Then we realize, okay, when we do start setting up some websites on these blockchain names, we don't plan on just abandoning our traditional names where there's going to be really dual. We're going to, like I said, there's going to be a slow migration to blockchain names. So I think this is important. The reason I like I was going to call Namecheap and say, "Can I work for you?" Because I want to boss around Tishan and Johnny Woo now. You guys don't. Just kidding. I just felt like saying that. Um, I think what the big thing I like about Handshake, just so folks know, is yeah, that is actually owning the extension. The ENS, you don't own the .eth, right? You're just getting the name to the left of the dot with a .eth extension. Same with Unstoppable. You're registering a .crypto name or a .nft name and a .x name. So I believe that ICANN is likely to issue um, an extension like .nft and an extension like .crypto. And of course, .crypto, there is a handshake .crypto as well. So when people talk about these potential collisions with multiple the same extensions out there on different chains, and then with through ICANN, yeah, that's possible. But I was going to mention, Handshake. Right. We won't get into the whole thing, but they reserved all of the ICANN extensions and then even an additional 100,000 to try to avoid collisions. So I'm not worried about someone getting or wanting, ICANN issuing .tot in the future. So I think Handshake is onto something, meaning there's going to be a lot of extensions that are never going to be issued, but I think should be accessible. So that said, I really want to dig deeper and try to get, we see Richard on here uh, sometimes. I haven't seen him for a couple months, but yeah, that would be a great guest to get in now because, as you know, Paige, he was also buying some other names and really has, it seems like, all sorts of different projects in the works. So that I really am excited about. That I like that this is going to be, but it doesn't mean it's a big thing now. But it's almost like so he's staking some ground over here. He believes that there is something there, and I have to agree. With regards to, remember when you mentioned MAGA the other day, and it was for 75 grand, MAGA. and we know, okay, the history of what that word, but I was going to say there was another four letter that just sold. It was a word not that great. I can't think of it, but I brought it up yesterday for like 87,000. And I still think it was clam, I believe, CLAM, clam. And we know
Yeah, it
clam
was
means some.
it was a GoDaddy auction name. Someone let that expire, and GoDaddy is going to make $87,000 on that name.
Well, I'm so glad for them because they've been struggling. Okay, so Paul Nix, got he's president now of domains, right? Well, next Thursday with the right of the dot auction, he's actually having a 10. I think it's 10 o'clock my time, 10 PST. He's having a 1 hour question and answer through ICA, a Zoom call. So I would recommend, I'm going to be part of that, as I'm definitely going to watch the ROTD auction. But yeah, because we have some questions about some bull crap that still goes on at the auctions. And they always have answers, and Paul's cool and diplomatic, but there's still some bullshit. So I can't wait to, I love that Paul's always around. But I was going to say that clam was 87,000, and it's okay, but MAGA, it's easy to pronounce, 75,000. And I know people, I think the popularity of that term can be a benefit, even if you do something that's has nothing to do with politics and make America great again bull, with that whole thing. Meaning, I still like the name for 75,000. I wanted to mention to you, and I'll finish up by just asking you, so tell me a little bit about this Anteaters NFT. I'm done.
Well, uh, I almost had it done. It almost came out last year. It may come out this year. So I'll just leave it that for me, it was a great way to create an NFT around an animal that would be, uh, just like the apes, an indicator of membership in a group. And it would really be the power of the group that would take on, some neat aspects. So for me, the reason I thought about anteaters was because I bought anteaters.com, and I started researching just anteaters, and they're an amazing animal, truly an amazing animal. And then when I thought about what I might do in NFTs, I had a couple other projects, and then I thought, well, maybe I'll do the anteaters. You know what I mean? And so my tagline for anteaters, and hopefully no one's going to use this and come out with a fake anteaters NFT. Um, because I just really never got my contract dialed in, and the team that I had used to do it kind of failed me. Um, yeah, so my tagline was going to be "My NFT sucks." So that was going to be the hook.
Hey, I wanted to mention, Paige, about the liar.com. Okay, so that was just a rich guy. And really, most Americans can't spell liar anyway. Lyer. I don't know. Lier. Oh, Liar. So it's not like easy to spell, because
Liar,
most people are thinking
liar,
liar.
liar.
Well, they don't.
We
A
know
lot of
how to
people don't.
spell
Don't they?
liar. I'm going.
Well,
I'm
I do.
going
I do.
Princess
But
Bride on you,
well,
liar. Okay.
well, now it makes Michael Jackson not look so silly buying that machine that he was sleeping in. I mean, this was just Musk if he bought, just thinking it's funny. And then you're right. Well, I was going to say about the $500,000 buy it now. Well, domainers, they'll say, well, he left money on the table, shouldn't have priced it. No, what you do, price your names with buy it now, and just assume that Musk is the buyer and just price them high. But I love hearing that story. And of course, there's no type in traffic. They have to get press because no one's just typing liar.com. So he has to not only spend 500,000 for the name, of course, then he gets that press for buying it. But now if he wants to continue to use it and think it's funny, but yeah, can they resell? But that's basically just a rich guy showing you. It's like a practical joke. He just did a little fun thing, and I guess if you got that, he's got that kind of dough, he can do it. But I don't think it's even effective. I think it's those are like the old tricks. I used to have sorry ass pointed to politicians too, my domain names, and it is a funny thing. But that was just a rich guy, I don't know, doing something that he thought was funny. And I'm not mad at him, but anyway, I'm glad for the domain
Yeah, but
owner.
I think even when you talk about free publicity, if a one-word domain name and what it's pointed at is a story that you think about in today's world, like when someone sponsors a Super Bowl team, someone sponsors a Daytona race car. You know what I mean? They put their name on the race car for the number of people that are going to see it. You know what I mean? Um, and you think about social media, a story about a word.com, something happening to it is very repeatable and promotable. You know what I mean? So I think that for buying the name and doing something, he didn't have to. I don't believe he had to pay to promote that tweet that he bought that. You know what I mean? It was earned. It was free publicity around just the concept of saying that the definition of a word online, the .com, was being pointed to this. And if you just think about the cumulative mind share, this is what's exciting about it. In a world where every single company and business is competing for the attention of customers, you know what I mean? This got in there and got some of that attention. And I just think that if he did it for a lark and a rich guy just doing it, just think about companies that know what so many page views mean and so many looks and so many discussions and really penetrating people's attention span and what they talk about around the water cooler can mean for their business. That's what I wanted to paint a picture of was, if I bought success.com and I wanted to define what success was, that there'd be a certain amount of earned media that would come from it. So that was kind of my angle.
Well, in right, but it's like buying one ad. The advertisers know it's consistency. So you're right. He did get that press and that immediate stuff. It's that huge bump. But in 2 weeks from now, there's going to be no one's going to search back. What was that story about liar? Unless it keeps, there's no way for it to keep coming around. So yeah, there was this 1 week of a big bump. But in a month from now, no one's going to know liar. They don't have to keep saying, "Hey, did you?" I mean, it's like I said, a cute little joke, and they did get some, that initial tweet and all that stuff gets some attention, but it just goes away fast. So then, it was an expensive,
Yeah, I think we probably just
expensive
disagree
ad.
on that. So, all right,
Oh,
Todd.
okay.
Well, awesome. And wish you luck this week. Todd, remind me again when your rooms are on Clubhouse this week, if anyone's listening.
Well, tomorrow's a big day only because the domain name law at 3 p.m. Pacific and 6 p.m. Eastern. Thanks, Paige. The guys that I do it with, Jeff Newman and David Michaels, a couple of lawyers, but they really are. We've done a lot of preparing this week because one of the cases that we're doing is one that Jeff Newman was a panelist on, and he basically dissented. So the other two panelists, this is the first time he was on a three-member panel, and he dissented with his other two panelists. The other two panelists ruled against the domain investor and said transfer that domain away, and Jeff said no, the domain investor should have kept it. So we're going to cover a case that he did, which is always interesting because we've been around for a long time to have a panelist give their views, and he's really candid. It means a lot. So that's the room tomorrow that I hope everybody shows up for. And then, of course, on Thursday, I'm Jeff's sidekick on talking domains. And that really is great for domainers, from the very beginner to the one with a lot of experience. So those two rooms, you can see them on my profile. But thanks for asking, Paige.
Yeah, I really think what you guys do on the Tuesday Law Room, um, the idea of trademarks, the idea of cyber squatting, the idea of what do you do either as a domain owner or as a company. There is so much urban myth, misinformation out there. And if you are a domain owner, if you're a trademark owner, if you're a company owner, and you'd like to elevate your knowledge to at least be in the world where real decisions take place, not the urban myth world, not the some guy trying to get a name by threatening this or threatening that, but the real world. I think they do a really good job in that room. And I think it may be another aspect of legal domains that they're on. So I really do recommend that room. I'll be doing Outbounding Club right before Todd's room tomorrow at 5 Eastern. And then I'll be doing $1 Million Domains on Wednesday at 1 Eastern. And then I'm starting to do more social rooms on Thursday and Friday. So hopefully you follow Domain Club. Hopefully you follow me here on Clubhouse. And if you'd like to do a room, either scheduled or just a pop-up room, and you'd like to do it in Domain Club, we are the largest domain club on Clubhouse. We're over 3,300 members, I think. And you will potentially be able to get a better audience by doing a room in Domain Club. So if you'd like to do that, I can make you kind of a super moderator. You can start a room on your own, either a pop-up room or you can set a time for it. And if you do set up a time and let me know, we'll retweet it and we'll send it out and mention it maybe if we can on some of the startup club shows I do. So anyway, I wanted to hold that out to folks for the rest of the year. That I know everyone wants to build their own club and do their own thing, but if you wanted to get some more attraction and be amplified a little bit, then yes, we are opening up Domain Club for members to have rooms in Domain Club. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us for Monday Domains. If you came in late, you can hear the beginning either by listening to the replay. If you're listening to it, follow us on Domain Club on Clubhouse. You may be listening to this on the podcast off of Clubhouse, but by joining Clubhouse, you'll get notifications and be connected to this growing community of domain investors and just really nice people that we've been able to grow here on Clubhouse. So thanks, everybody.